Good evening. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Sean Ulmer. I'm Executive Director here at the Cedar Rapids Museum of Art. I want to thank you for joining me for another in our series of monthly programs called One Night Stand. Tonight, we're going to be looking at Ann Wilson's Hair Streak 2, which is a work that is currently on view in our exhibition Beyond the Object. And so I'm going to just go ahead and jump right in and share my screen. Where are we? Here we are. Okay, there we go. So we'll go ahead and start this slideshow. There we go. All right, wonderful. Again, thank you for joining me this evening. We're going to look at a very, very interesting piece, one that is a real standout, I think, in our current exhibition, Beyond the Object, Women Working in Abstraction. It's an exhibition that our curator, Julia Jessen, pulled together and with works from the permanent collection of women that are working in abstraction. Certainly, women have been a part of abstract movements all along, but they haven't necessarily been given their fair share, their fair due of attention. And so this exhibition is called From Our Collection and looks at women artists who are working in a wide variety of abstract modes. One of these, which is quite unusual and quite different from all the rest, is Ann Wilson's Hair Streak 2. Here I show you an image of it, kind of a professionally shot image of it, with no background at all, sort of floating there on the screen. You can see it's a mixed media piece. It's made up of a lot of different strips, and into those strips have been embedded colored hair. Here a little bit closer view of it so that you can get a sense of it. And then I've got a few details, but they're not great details, I'll tell you. First, I'm sorry, here it is. It's on one of the walls of the gallery here. You see it with a work by Joanne Ribble and by Sue Hebensberger. And so quite different. This exhibition celebrates the great diversity of women working in abstraction. And so what links them is that they are all women artists that are exploring different aspects of abstraction. You can see in the case of Ann Wilson's piece on the left, it actually is quite a three-dimensional piece. It really does kind of come off the wall, project off the wall in these strips of hair that are probably about 4 inches deep when it's all said and done. Here, a more kind of detailed shot of it in the gallery against the wall. And it's not quite this pale. The photo made it look a little bit bleached out. It's not quite this pale, but you get a sense of the strips and the hair. And then I was able to get, again, it's a little bit pale. It's a much richer, deeper, and darker piece than you see here, but you get a sense of this extraordinary texture, this extraordinary surface that is that makes up the piece. It's this wonderful tumult of these writhing forms that have some colors, primarily in this black gray, but there's also these wonderful spots of color in blue and in orange red. And you can see it really is kind of a writhing surface. It's a very active and animated surface. And it's a fascinating piece to really kind of get lost in as you're looking at it. Here's a picture of Ann Wilson. She was last year recipient of the American Craft Council Award. She was a gold medalist for craftsmanship. She has spent her entire career working in the arts. She was born in 1949. She is the Chicago-based visual artist. Just some notes here on her biography. She's known for working in a variety of media, including sculpture, drawings, internet projects, photography, performance, and DVD stop-motion animations, which I'll share with you a little bit later if all goes according to plan. She employs table linens, bed sheets, human hair, lace, thread, and wire, but in a way that extends the traditional processes of fiber arts. Techniques such as stitching, crocheting, and knitting to other media. So she really kind of extends or pushes the boundaries of fiber arts. Her artwork explores both personal and public practices of ritual and social systems, ideas of deconstruction and reconstruction in both public and private worlds, as well as themes of time and loss. She is a professor emerita in the Department of Fiber and Material Studies at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I found in doing research for this presentation a wonderful video, and it's on YouTube, so you can absolutely access it yourself. But I'm going to see if I can't play you just a little bit of it, and hopefully this will work. I'm not too sure it will, 'cause it certainly worked when I was practicing, but I'm not sure it will work here. I'm going to actually make this smaller. Okay. And hold on just a second, trying to see if I can do it this way. There we go. Okay.
I loved art in high school. And from there, I was accepted to the University of Michigan School of Art, where I did my first 2 years of undergraduate study. But I finished undergraduate studies at Cranbrook Academy of Art, working with Gerhard Nodell in the fiber department. And his enthusiasm for textiles was so compelling. He brought in visiting artists like Magdalena Abakanowicz from Poland, and he led departmental trips to New York City to visit studios. I remember so well the importance of visiting the studio of Lenore Tawney and how she and I became friends the years ahead. Gerhard and others of the then emerging international fiber art movement were profoundly affecting as mentors. An especially key mentor was Dr. Ruth Boyer, and Dr. Boyer was an anthropologist who taught full-time in the art history department at California College of Arts, where I did my graduate studies, and she taught textile art history. And from Dr. Boyer, I learned to see objects in terms of their meanings within a cultural context as considered visual forms that could embrace utility, use function, could embrace cultural identification, could embrace sophisticated aesthetics, and could embrace conceptual positions all simultaneously. And that was profoundly meaningful to me, to see textiles that way, not corralled or siloed into just women's work or just a lesser kind of craft, which at that time was problematic. But I didn't see it that way. I saw textiles as expansive and very open in their potential as a field and in their history that she taught me. I work with human hair as an art material.
Okay, so I understand that's, you can hear it, but you cannot see it. So I apologize for that. But we will go ahead and go back into the presentation itself. Let's see here, let's do this from the beginning. Oh, sorry. I wanted to get these full screen for you, so my apologies. I'm going to go backtrack just a tad bit here, but we're not too far along. Okay, so a little bit more biography. I just wanted to share a little bit of that video of Ann Wilson talking. It is about a 12-minute video. You can get it on YouTube. So, so I do recommend that you take a look at it. I was simply wanted to show you the beginning of it, which talked a little bit about a biography, and I wanted to do a little bit deeper dive in that with you. So, as I mentioned, she was born in 1949, and she was born in Detroit, Michigan. At the age of 15, she attended the George School, a Quaker boarding school in Pennsylvania, where she received training in feminist theory and the philosophies of passive resistance through the study of Gandhi's teaching on nonviolent politics. In her later research, Wilson remarked that her lessons at George School, especially Gandhi's exhortation to all Indians that they must practice spinning, for social, political, economic, and spiritual reasons, profoundly influenced her life and artistic practice. She mentioned that she began her undergraduate work at the University of Michigan, but she received her BFA from the Cranbrook Academy of Art and her MFA from California College of Arts, where she pursued an interdisciplinary studies in the visual arts. At CCA, Wilson developed an understanding of art within a cultural context, a way of thinking emphasized by her instructor, art historian, and anthropologist, Dr. Ruth Boyer, who she mentioned in her video. Subsequently, Wilson's graduate research focused on temporary textile architecture of various African cultures. During this time, she was also influenced by the international fabric movement, including artists such as Magdalena Abakanowicz, Olga Amaral, and Ed Rosbeck. During the 1970s, while she was living in Berkeley, Wilson argued for the relevance of contemporary fiber and textile arts alongside the more conventional fine arts materials and techniques. She began using hair as a fiber material in place of thread in the 1980s. Her early works consisted of daily stitching where the artist, quote unquote, stained clean white scraps of cloth with small patches of hair-based needlework. She began inviting audiences to participate in the creation of her work in the mid-1990s. So I wanted to show you here an early work from 1990. There are works from the 80s that she created as well, but this one from 1990, you can see where she's just this wonderful surface that you see here. It's a large piece that hangs on the wall, and it's the whole surface is in some ways somewhat similar to Hair Streak too, and then it's a very animated surface, and it's completely covered with this wonderful texture throughout. Here from 1991 are two human and synthetic hair pieces that you see here. Hair is a very personal item. It absolutely references the body, but there are a lot of rituals associated with hair and the cutting of hair, especially with senses of time and loss and memorialization. And she's referencing all of those in works such as this. Here, two more pieces from that particular series, from that same series, early 1991. Again, sort of dealing with hair and all of the associations that one has with it. Mourning cloth here from just the next year is a cloth that is into which hair has been sewn. So the dark that you see there is a combination of hair. You see it just hangs on the wall from a single point. I have a detail coming up here. But it looks like a regular cloth. It looks like a tablecloth. Again, it's kind of the whole idea of tablecloth, table linens. Again, a further association with weaving, with stitching, with women, in particular with women's work. Here, a detail where you can see that hair is sewn into the piece, and then where there are holes, which normally would be a woman's job to mend a tablecloth that has a hole. And here she accentuates these holes. They become, she calls them in a way drawings for her, with stitching, with actual sewn stitching. So she really sort of, that hole, again, this becomes very much a body, very much a human form in a way, and think of the holes lost or damaged, or that then is referencing a very specific human experience in just using this cloth, this kind of tablecloth form as a metaphor. Here, Lost from 1998. Again, it is a simple cloth, in this case draped over a chair. The hair that you see there is graduated across the cloth. And she did, she did say that Lost is about the loss of the physical body. It's about mortality. The displaced hair is lost, separated from the body, graduated over a large cloth that may reference something like a garment or curtain gathered and draped over a chair. And I don't think I have a detail of that. I don't. Here, also from the 90s, is found, and this is a simple cloth hung on the wall that gathers at the floor, again covered in hair and thread. And you see the wood is what hangs it on the wall. I should say that, Anne is an artist whose work is extraordinarily powerful, and she's an artist who, has made a name for herself. She is in a number of very prestigious collections, but she is not a household name. She is not as well known as she deserves to be, because her work is extraordinarily powerful, very meaningful, very sort of referential to and relevant to the human form, to the body. Here you can see, if you look very carefully in the white of the cloth, you have a pattern that one finds in or on tablecloths, on linen tablecloths. You can see that kind of a floral or a foliate pattern that you see there with the hair embedded. 2000, a piece called Feast, in which you have really basically a table, a very large table that is covered with a tablecloth, if you will, and then where there are holes, she has stitched and applied hair, but also stitched around those holes, similar to what she did in other works. Here, kind of almost referencing the activities that may have occurred on that tablecloth. And again, these are losses, and these are sort of accretions and growth losses that occurred over time. So it's always referencing a certain time element as well in the work. And here a detail, she also uses these pins, these kind of sewing pins that you see here, that gives it a real three-dimensional quality. You see there is an actual three-dimensional quality to the work, and it becomes almost a landscape, and that's not a stretch. That's really kind of an apt comparison, because being on a flat surface with some of these mounds that you kind of see in the background, and these structures that are being kind of sort of formed by the use of the pins, it becomes really kind of a landscape unto itself. And it's not surprising that an artist such as Wilson, whose work does so much to reference the body, would also be referencing the landscape, because for a very long time throughout art history, human form and the landscape have been linked. Many people describe, say, a reclining figure as being a landscape, being kind of a topographical view, and the whole connection of the body and land, Mother Earth, all of those are all intertwined. So it's not at all surprising to me that someone who begins, working with these hair pieces, talking about loss and about time, would, eventually find this kind of topography, in their form. So it sort of naturally morphs, and it's actually, the subject of a work that she did, several times over, between 2002 and 2008, called Topologies. Again, kind of a reference to topographies that you might think of. Very, very large table here, covered in white, and this is a series that she began when she was invited to participate in the 2002 Whitney Biennial at the Whitney Museum of American Art. And she created this in its first incarnation. It has subsequently been shown 4 additional times that I know of around the globe. The last time that I think it was shown was at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. And so, again, it's this wonderful surface, and it's a few words on it here. It's in topologies, expansive networks of found black lace are deconstructed to create large horizontal topographies. Some of the structures are formed by Wilson from computer-mediated scans of lace fragments that are manipulated and rematerialized by hand stitching. The form of topologies is inspired by forms of physical and electronic networks, city structures, immateriality, biology, and urban sprawl. And I think it's more apparent when I kind of give you here's 4 details from that piece. You can see where she's using the lace, where she's deconstructing it and reconstructing it, which kind of goes back to some of the things that she's been interested in throughout her career, and creating these really interesting topographies, the really interesting landscape, very large landscape using fiber. But again, pushing the boundaries of fiber arts and what fiber arts can be, and really comes into the sort of sculpture or in a way a kind of a painting, all sort of mixed together, all at the same time. And here gives you a sense of scale. I mean, it's just really quite immense. It really is a full-on room installation. It also gives you a sense of some of the varying heights of various elements in the piece itself. And interestingly, after that, she explores in a piece called Two, glass. And so here I'm going to give you a little detail. The project statement is really quite simple. To weave, to wind, to knot, to knit, to twist, to push, to pack, to press. And this is a series of glass objects that are really kind of ghosts of tools that are used for weaving cloth, or making bobbin lace, or knitting, or knotting. This is a glass making process called pot de verre. She said in 1967-68, the artist Richard Serra compiled a list of action verbs that combined an interest in material properties and physical processes of making sculptures. And this work, her title derives from that form of his list, but incorporating some of the same terms and adding new ones. And so here in these wonderful glass objects, she is evoking all of these wonderful tools that are used sort of in lace making, in knitting, in knotting, and in the weaving of cloth. Here from 2011, a little bit later, another piece that's in some ways somewhat similar to ours in that it has this basically thread and human hair, a very long piece that hangs off the wall and pools at the bottom here, a little detail of it. And then in 2010, she did one of her more ambitious installations at the Knoxville Museum of Art in East Tennessee. Local industry, a central component of the exhibition, created this site-specific installation, which was a collaborative textile factory. This was in 2010. Visitors to the Knoxville Museum of Art worked together to produce a bolt of cloth. She conceived this as a meditation on labor, acknowledging the specific geographic location of the Knoxville Museum of Art in the historical heartland of both hand weaving traditions and textile mill production in the United States. The local industry cloth, which measures over 75 feet in length, was on display at the Knoxville Museum of Art in 2011. So this was one of the pieces, and she's always had, involved people, whether it's studio assistants under her control, or in this case, kind of a community gathering together to create this community cloth that references the importance of the textile industry in that region, but also the history of hand-making, hand-working textiles. And then also related to a piece like this Wilson has choreographed at least 4 thread walking performances, which are conceptual movement works based on weaving. In all of her performances, she is working through direct physical participation to think about issues of time, labor, art, and cultural production. And so that really informs her work throughout her career. Here, another wonderful textile piece that served as the backdrop for a choreographed kind of dance piece that played against this backdrop. And here a work from 2016, again on kind of a tablecloth material, hair and thread, really, really beautiful, elegant, powerful, simple work. And she continues this exploration, works such as Body into Culture from 2017, a series of wall pieces of detail of one of the ones in the center, where you can see that it's extraordinary attention to detail in a work such as this. And then Errant Behaviors from 2022. This is also a video. This is a remarkable stop action DVD video that she created for an installation. Given that the last video didn't work, I'm going to try it again and just see if I can get it to run. I'm not too sure. There's some sound, but you may not be able to hear it. It's very subtle. Okay, I apologize. I understand you can hear it, but you can't see it. So you'll have to visit Ann Wilson's website and look up some of her video work. It really is quite wonderful to take a look at it, where she, again, using pins, using thread, using lace, creates this extraordinary stop action video, taking really fiber arts to a whole new dimension in her work. So again, I apologize that the videos didn't work. I tried it 2 different ways, so I apologize that did not share with you. But that brings us back to our piece. So here is our work again, Hair Streak, and as you may have noticed when I put up the slide the first time, it's an undated piece. So we don't know when it dates from, but we have a better idea of it. So when the piece was acquired, we did reach out to the artist, let her know that we had the piece, and if there's any information that she could provide on the piece, and she responded, she said, "Yes, this looks like a piece of mine from 1983. I will do some research and get back to you soon." So that was great, because we really didn't have a date for it, and so it was nice to know that, and as such, a piece from 1983, it is an incredibly early piece. I mean, the first piece I showed you was from 1990, so this would be a very, very early piece of hers. However, the plot thickens, as they say, because she wrote back a little bit after that, and she said, that she looked at her notes and that the dimensions of our piece are incorrect. as if the work was corrupted or possibly cut down. She said the work of hers that she was thinking of from 1983 is called Hair Streak, not Hair Streak 2. And it measures 4 feet high by 6 feet wide. Ours does not measure that. Ours is a smaller size, pretty much a square, 42.5 by 43 inches. And so not the 4 feet by 6 feet. And so we were kind of the artist and we were kind of in a quandary. She says, I'm perplexed about what to do. I do not wish to authenticate a work as mine when it is not my original work. I welcome your thoughts. So we have some more work to do on this to figure out where this fits. It came to us as Hair Streak 2, related to Hair Streak, the Hair Streak that she's referencing, but not the same piece. But obviously similar enough that when she first saw an image of it, she felt like it was that piece. But only upon doing further research realized that the dimensions were not the same at all. And so we do have some more work to do on this piece, sort of getting down to the actual truth of the matter, seeing if we can figure out if this is something that is by her or something that might have been after her. Someone inspired by one of her works that created another work that that is instead derivative. We don't know, but it is nonetheless a really powerful piece, and certainly one worth viewing in our exhibition, and at the same time allowed us the opportunity to share with you really the full and rich range of work that Ann Wilson has created over her career. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and if anybody has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask them, and I'll do my best to answer them. Any questions? Well, seeing none, I will then just simply thank you for joining me this evening. Hope you enjoyed getting to know Ann Wilson's work a little bit better and how our piece may fit into her career. Please join us again next month for another edition of One Night Stand. Until then, have a wonderful evening. Thank you.